And now it's time for Fabulous Film and Friends. This week on Fabulous Film and Friends, we're taking on the monumental challenge of dissecting Francis Ford Coppola's sprawling, controversial, and somewhat divisive 2024 opus, Megalopolis, starring Adam Driver, Giancarlo Esposito, Nathalie Emmanuel, Aubrey Plaza, Shia LeBeouf, Jon Voight, Talia Shire, Jason Schwartzman, Grace Vanderwaal, Kathryn Hunter, and Dustin Hoffman, plus as a bonus, James Remar and D.B. Sweeney in essentially featured background roles. I'm your host, Gino Caputi, and joining me this week are two of my sturdy and stalwart fellow film snobs who had the guts and determination to get to the movie theater before the film was yanked from screens, Joe Field and Gordon Alex Robertson. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Alex, warm us up with a little bit of your Jon Voight. Very glad to see Aubrey Plaza.
Oh, I don't think age is a thing. It's really more of a number. More, think of it as a spreadsheet. Think of it as pluses and minuses, like the big plus that I've got right in here in my pants.
Not bad. For a second, I thought you really were Jon Voight. All right. Before we go bonkers, don the Coppola sandwich board and howl at the masses, the synopsis. In the dark days before the impending collapse of New Rome, Caesar Catalina, a man who can stop time and space, ventures to create a utopian city using Catalinium, the Nobel Prize-winning element he invented. He seeks to replace this decaying city with a new vision for a bright future, but said vision faces setbacks on many levels. Despite political, financial, and societal and familial obstacles draining down on him, Catalina's unwavering spirit cannot be deterred. All right. Gonna go after you first, Joe. Joe, what'd you think of Megalopolis?
Oh, it was a lot of everything, and I can kind of understand why why I was only able to find a 9 a.m. showing at my local theater after 1 week of being in theaters.
And do you like it? Thumbs up, thumbs down?
I like some Roman emperors, I'm gonna have to give this a thumbs down.
Whoa, thumbs down. Okay. All right. Alex Robertson, what do you got?
Yes.
Thumbs up, thumbs down.
Thumbs up. Thumbs
Nice.
up.
Yeah. Give it a one sentence reason why.
Provocative. And a reminder of the magic of cinema. That's, it's obvious that it was done by a master who still has a little bit left in the tank, opposed to some of his compatriots who are just phoning it in.
I agree. Thumbs up all the way for me. I actually was all by myself in a noon screening, had the whole theater myself to cough and giggle and do whatever the hell I wanted. And I actually loved it. I was having a good time. I was laughing quite a bit. I was astounded by some of the twists and turns. First half hour, I thought, oh, brother, this is black box theater of the worst order. This is just going to suck. Because it's in the Fellini, it feels a little ostentatious for sure. But after a while, I realized that's the point. So I went with it. I think, like Alex says, you look at Scorsese, you look at Kubrick on his last film, and it's just not there. And you look at Scorsese, who's just dry as a bone, and just seems like he's got nothing on his mind. Coppola still got it. I mean, it was a ranting, raving, bonkers movie, and I was like, yeah, this is good. I don't know how, Joe, I don't know how familiar you are with Coppola's work. I don't know how many films of his you've seen, but I saw a lot of his past films in there, and I saw a lot of his story in there. It really felt like a guy drunk off his ass, wearing a lampshade, singing My Way, but he's still like, you can't help but admire him. So I liked it. I enjoyed it quite a bit. What did you not like about it, Joe?
I think there are a lot of different elements that I kind of had some issues with. I think one was some of the script writing, like, swung wildly in different directions, and like going from either quite modern to very like pseudo Shakespearean, uh and occasionally like okay, lapsing into like, okay, this is gonna, how many quotes can they include in a movie from other things and other people, and it wasn't always, I mean, maybe this is one of those movies where if I watched it 3 or 4 more times, I might get more out of it than, and I'm sure I probably would get more out of it than just seeing it once. But on like a first view, um, I was just like, it bordered on incoherent for me at least. Not to say that there weren't good moments or things that I thought were interesting. I mean, like in terms of like really cool scenes, I thought that driving through the city and seeing these different statues kind of adopt these different positions was actually a pretty cool image. Just visually, I thought was kind of cool, but there was just a lot, and I liked the indoor coliseum that they had at a certain point.
Well, let me stop you for a second. It was justice and it was the law, right? The two crumbling statues. Where it was it? Is that what it was?
Yeah.
I didn't know what this. Wasn't quite sure what the second statue was. The man. There was a woman. I thought that was definitely justice, right? So
I think the scales of justice.
yeah. So justice was failing, and that was the law. Was it was he holding the 10 Commandments? I can't remember. What
it might have been. It was hard for me to tell too.
Yeah. I thought. Yeah. Anyway, go on. I just wanted to double check to make sure we're all, like, because I thought symbolism was fairly heavy, but like there was never a boring shot. Like, I mean, just like with Dracula, he's just throwing every style out of split screens, faces in pools of water, CG, practical effects, the time and space. So I just thought, like, spoiler everybody, when Adam Driver gets shot and you think he's dead and then he comes back with a CG face, I'm like, all right, here's Coppola, I love you, baby. You're subverting any expectation I had. Like, you see the trailer and you think, okay, society's gonna face a calamity and they're gonna have to regroup. That's not the movie. That's not the movie at all. And I thought, okay, this isn't what I expected, but I'm still thrilling to all the sort of just audacity of it all. I just was never bored, and I just felt like he was essentially saying, maybe, like a Woody Allen or a Steve Martin or any sort of egomaniac making movies. He's saying, me and my family are the wave of the future. And I'm like, but if you're going to do it like that. That's how I felt about it. Anyways, as you were saying.
No, I mean, I think that was most of what I had to say. It was just like, I think also it was hard for me to just attach to characters. And I'm not somebody who needs every character to be perfect or extremely likable, but the different elements for different characters, I think the most that I liked for example, like Adam Driver's character of Caesar Catalina, was just the moment where he said, like, if you try to act good, nobody will ever believe you, or something along those lines, or nobody will take you seriously. But otherwise, like, there wasn't a whole lot for me to, like, there wasn't a real strong emotional core, I guess, that I found with any of these characters. And maybe it's partly because it's supposed to be kind of farcical in these different ways. But
I was surprisingly into the characters. I was surprised. I thought John Voight and Giancarlo Esposito were just me cameos or something. The only one who I think disappeared without much impact was Dustin Hoffman. But I thought Giancarlo Esposito had a great character arc. I thought John Voight had a surprisingly good character arc. Shia LeBeouf had a pretty good character arc. I mean, very Italian character arc. And I thought Aubrey Plaza, I figured she was a walk-on. No, she was pretty much integral to the story. Nathalie Emmanuel, who was getting hammered, she wasn't amazing, but she served her purpose. And I thought she does look like Giancarlo Esposito. So I bought them as father and daughter. I actually was taken in by the sort of family core of the movie. knowing full well that he's sort of reflecting on the death of his wife and the death of his son, and all these things are coming together like a Godfather movie. It's literally the globalist Godfather. That should be my YouTube sort of, thumbnail of globalist Godfather. But it really was. Like, anyway, I'm talking much. Alex, what do you got? Why'd you like it? What's strong about the film?
Well, I think it's interesting what Joe said earlier about how the script felt kind of disjointed.
Yeah.
And apparently, Coppola encouraged improvisation from all the actors. In fact, I think he said, write your own scenes. And they would. Now, he would come in and do some doctoring, I think, to kind of tie it up. But I also think it's interesting that you said sometimes it feels like they're talking in heightened language, other times they're in prose. But that's very Shakespearean. I mean, a lot of the great Shakespearean plays, when you've got some more of the noble characters, they speak in iambic pentameter. And then the peons, the groundlings, are speaking in prose. I think it does kind of help with the divide in the movie, the different people. I think what helped me watching the movie is, I have to admit too, in the beginning, I'm like, okay, I'm trying to decipher what this is. Has he lost it? And I don't think he has. And there are some things that I thought were just a little on point, but I wonder if that was his intent, because he's throwing all these things at us.
Well,
and
he's
he does
definitely
it in such
got
a
a Hamlet motif with Catalina. So
yeah. Yes, and of course, to the point that he does to be or not to be. Yeah.
He recites the big one itself.
To be or not to be.
So
exactly.
He's certainly, I definitely got an Ayn Randish sense of.
Yeah.
Coppola thinks the Power Masters deserve to be Power Masters and leave them alone, which that's what I got. I mean, the last title card says it,
Yes, pretty much. We're the people of the earth.
It's funny that I did think of Tomorrowland, Brad Bird's Tomorrowland.
Well, I don't know if you noticed in the credits at the very, because I love to stick around for the credits, and at the very end, we'd like to thank the following people. There's Brad Bird's name, almost at the very top, and you're like, aha,
Yeah, well, it definitely had. But I think it's a better. See, Tomorrowland came off.
Never saw it.
Well, it's a Disney movie, Ayn Rand kind of thing. It's so you definitely have like, well, all the great people are going to shape humanity, while you peons can suck it. So this movie had that vibe, but I think he added that sort of nutty Fellini touch that made it go down a little easier. I think.
Well, there was certainly. It's funny because it was like watching Satyricon, but Satyricon with a plot.
Right.
I mean, Satyricon, not a bunch of disjointed scenes that are all tied in by the characters, but like, okay, this is going somewhere.
I felt the same thing. I thought so. Right off the bat, I said, okay, he's going for this black box drama, Satyricon feel. I'm not like, I was very on edge. Like, okay, this is gonna be terrible. He roped me in with the visuals.
Yeah. Well, and the Madison Square Garden scene when Shia LaBeouf shows up in drag, I guess we would say, that's straight out of Satyricon.
Yeah.
And there was almost something, because what he wears is very revealing, and yet you don't see the genitalia, and that's very Fellini-esque.
Yeah.
The way he deals with these androgynous or these. I know there's a hermaphrodite at some point in Satyricon, and it's just, very much. So, I think it's partly Coppola tipping his hat to the masters, the people that probably influenced him.
Yeah.
But also, as we mentioned, I don't know if we mentioned, but borrowing from his own work. I mean, there's a lot of, there was The Godfather, the idea of family. I did love that at the end.
For sure, Tucker torpedo, I felt a lot of the Tucker thing going on in that movie.
That look, sort of that, that
look,
50s
but the idea that this great man stands alone and everybody stands alone,
a visionary, and very few share in that vision.
Yeah,
and the thing that bonds Adam Driver to Ms. Emmanuel is the fact that she has that gift as well. That
you're right.
She helps him find his, she becomes his muse. And it
feels like there's a little nod to Eleanor Coppola, and
then
I don't. So if you've ever seen Steve Martin's movies. So he does L.A. Story, and he's got this interlude with Sarah Jessica Parker playing a girl in a shop. Then he writes a novel called Shop Girl. Then he's got the movie Shop Girl. And you think, okay, obviously Steve Martin had an affair with somebody in a shop.
Yeah, somewhere
so
along
I'm
the
starting
line.
to go, okay, what's with the reporter? Because there's a reporter in Godfather 3, and then we got the reporter who's stabbing him in the back in this movie. I'm thinking, is there some sort of motif going on in Coppola's life with the media, where he needs the media? He sort of respects the media, but he actually kind of hates the media. So I don't know. I thought there was things going on.
Well, as a good friend of ours once said, I wonder what he's thinking.
No, it just there was
such a giveaway.
Yeah.
No,
but there's something going on with his relationship with the media. And Aubrey Plaza was really good. You know,
she was.
She really
Platinum. What a great character.
Made much more of an impact than I thought. Joe, you're shaking your head. No.
I mean, I feel like, I don't know. Maybe this is just me with the actor, but I feel like every time I see her, she plays pretty much the same role. I mean, she's not necessarily the same role, but she plays it the same way. I mean, the way that she acts in here is not at all so different from how she is in, say, Parks and Recreation, or, you know, I mean, insert thing here, and I guess that maybe that's kind of an unfair thing to say about an actor, but I at least feel like if you have somebody like Adam Driver, I've seen him in a couple movies, and he seems pretty different in this movie from anything else.
Well, thank God he's not doing his Fellini or his Ferrari Italian accent. So I was just happy to see him back in form, just being he's being not the everyman, but he's our sort of straight man with a vision. So he's colored by everybody around him. Obviously Shia LaBeouf and John Voight and everybody else. Giancarlo Esposito for sure. I thought Adam Driver was completely not formidable, but acceptable. You know, he was I had no issues with him. He's the lead. He's playing the guy. He's the straight man, and then he's the hero, and he reacted well to the circumstances. I kind of enjoyed his presence, and that's after House of Gucci and Ferrari, which he was not good. So I was thinking maybe he's done, maybe he's finished, because I'm not enjoying his work lately. So go ahead.
I mean, I kind of wonder though, like, and by all means, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not a film buff by nature, but I think, I mean, he doesn't strike me as much as an everyman as, like, I mean, I feel like we do end up following him, but he's kind of more of this tortured genius
right
type than anything else. Like, and I don't think that's an everyman.
No, wrong term for sure. I meant leading. I meant leading man is what I really meant. But he's sort of he's a bit arch, but he's not. I didn't think he by any means ruined the movie, and I liked him enough to follow the story. I don't think he did amazing work, but he was interesting enough. Mm-hmm. I think the one who probably did amazing work was Shia LaBeouf. I thought he was actually a really captivating character. I was watching an interview with Coppola, and he said Shia LaBeouf's interesting because he irritates you like Dennis Hopper does. He said he gets in your face and gets, all right, fine, do it. Fine, just do what you want, And I could see that because he seemed.
Well, he's been known to provoke fellow actors in the past, and I think that's part of his. That's part of his MO. I think it's what gets him into character.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If you punch him in the face, then he's done his job. I mean, that's the impression I get.
Look at it. Did you guys see him as Padre Pio? Alex, I forget. Yeah.
Yeah. No.
So he's, he had brought a lot of depth to that, and now, he
did.
He had sort of a specter, like, very strange, very Fellini, like, ghostly quality in this film.
Well, everything about that was the eyeliner, the hair, that crazy hair.
Yeah,
was perfect. And
but
his costume.
Fellini always has this sort of drinking coffee with a fork feel to his characters. Like, and that can be bad under the under a bad writer and director, that can just be frustrating. But with Fellini, it lends itself to a bad dream. Like, you can't quite grasp this person, you can't quite pin them down, and I thought he brought that, and Coppola brought that.
It's possible,
You know,
yeah.
almost
Yeah,
like
well,
a little demon.
yeah.
You know, he's like a little demon.
Yeah.
And then he ends up kind of like the death of
Mussolini, exactly.
Death, you know?
Yeah. Well,
and
I think
obviously, I think there was some.
there was no accident to that.
Subtle, but there were some nods to the MAGA movement. You know.
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't quite sure that went anywhere.
I don't think it did, but I still think it's ambiguous in terms of its politics.
Yeah.
I really do. I mean, because you've got people on both sides of the spectrum in their own personal lives. You've got John Voight, very conservative in his older age. You've got on the other side Giancarlo Esposito. I mean, I really credit to Francis Ford Coppola for not.
But I do think Coppola is irritating me when he goes in the interviews and talks about how he hired all these people of disparate political beliefs. You know, to me, I just want to say to the press, I fucking hired the guy from Deliverance, Midnight Cowboy, and Coming Home, you bastards. Shut up.
Yeah.
You
Shut
know?
up. Okay.
I mean,
well, I agree with that. It's like
shut up
nobody.
about the
Yeah,
politics.
who
Gives a rat's
cares?
ass?
Exactly.
I mean,
exactly.
Like John Voight hasn't made a name for himself as a legend in Hollywood. You know,
that's the
so
problem.
it's,
Because and maybe that's that whole love-hate thing with the press.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, I rely on you, but you are so goddamn short-sighted most of the time.
Yeah.
You know, you've got to be, and that was one of the themes in the movie. I mean, the idea of time, and it's like you either in the here and now, like Giancarlo Esposito, or you're looking beyond.
Yeah.
Like the Adam Drivers of the world, and it's like, I feel like, yeah, that's a, you know, and that's something that appears in other Coppola movies, as I've mentioned before. That was a big theme in Rumblefish.
Right.
The whole idea of time, you know, everything from the motif with the clocks on the wall, the clock, you know, and Stuart Copeland's wonderful score that had that ticking vibe to it, you know, and the idea of time just keeps passing you by, and how do you deal with it, you know? And I guess like with the reporters, it's like you're just stuck in this moment, and that's all. Your imaginations don't go any further. You know, and there he is. Why did you hire a conservative? If that was the case, it's like, no, as you said, I hired the guy that was in Deliverance. I hired Joe Buck.
Yeah.
You know, I hired Ratso Rizzo.
Yeah.
I hired Gus Fring.
Yeah. Right.
You know, that's who I hired.
And Giancarlo
Esposito.
Yeah. He finally got a part where he's just not despicable, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I was actually pleased that his character just wasn't this sort of one-note bad guy or naysayer, which, you know, even when he started with Spike Lee, he was a bit of a one-note naysayer.
Oh, he started before that, though. You go back to Taps.
Oh, boy, I forgot he was in Taps.
Yes, he's so young, and he's more, and he is a boy in that movie, essentially. I mean, he's got, you know, people forget that he does have range.
Yeah.
He really does. I mean, it's just, you know, he's just one of those guys. I think you can take his career apart, and you can say, you know, the young man epoch, or the young man era, then sort of the middle, you know, and then as you know, we get into the Breaking Bad and
but you see him on TV shows like The Boys. He's just. You can see
I've
just phoning it in, getting a paycheck, playing the bad guy.
Well,
you know,
I guess because if it's going to pay, why not?
Yeah, but he shows up on Boba Fett or
Mandalorian,
Mandalorian, so, you know.
But see, praise to Francis Ford Coppola for looking beyond that.
Exactly.
And knowing this guy can do more. He can do a whole lot more.
D.B. Sweeney can do more, but he didn't get much of it. I was expecting D.B. Sweeney to bust out.
I thought he would because of his position, his character.
Yeah, he's in a Coppola movie. Or he was in Gardens of Stone.
Gardens of Stone.
Yeah. Anyway, well, okay, Joe. What do you think the best scene in the film is?
Best scene. It's hard. It's hard for me to pick out one scene because there are a couple of images that I really liked. And I don't know if I'd say that I love the entire... Well, I think that one of the scenes I liked, weird choice maybe, but it's when it's sort of after he's lost his time ability or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And they're on those like hanging girders.
Mm-hmm.
And she's kind of reaching out to him and he's reaching down, I thought was a very kind of cool, like, image, and just the placement for them camera wise was interesting, and it was kind of a nice. I think I like that scene just because it did slow things down a little bit.
Well, again, Coppola is a romantic. That's why I like him much more than Scorsese. When we did a number on Scorsese, we had a number of battles between Scorsese and Coppola a couple years back, and when the show was in its infancy as just a little podcast. But that's what, Roseanne and we all determined he's a romantic, and he brings a sort of operatic sensibility to his movies that his contemporaries don't, mainly Lucas Spielberg, and he's a big lusty Italian guy, and so that film, that's where I said, yeah, there's that patented operatic romance that Coppola brings to a movie, and I like that scene a lot. But I think my favorite scene was the scene, a little wooden on her part, but I really liked it when he's like laughing at her and like, no, I'm all about art and science, and you beat it. Go back to your clubs, and your girlfriends, and then suddenly she stops and said, I've seen you do what you do, and he's like, what? You saw what? I like that. That's where I started picking up the pieces and go, okay, maybe I'm interested in this movie. So that, I'd say, just a small moment of I'm starting to buy into this film, and it was that scene. And then, after that, like, I just enjoyed the razzle dazzle of it all. I liked the scenes. I mean, they were a little obviously CG, but I liked the scenes with the statues falling into the street as whole things. And, I visually I liked it. I was very surprised that Russian satellite didn't mean that much.
Didn't it destroy a good chunk of the city?
It destroys a chunk of the city.
Well, it
destroys enough for him to rebuild his world, but it still doesn't.
Yeah.
It still didn't. It didn't have the devastation I thought that the previews promised. I thought we were going to face this massive calamity and they were going to rebuild. And it wasn't a massive calamity. That's all. Like, okay, this just seems to sort of fit into his vision or his sort of life force. Like, okay, everything's kind of going into his favor. But then again, spoilers again, he gets shot, and then he's Coppola, but begging for money. So he's got the scene where he's got to go on all hands on his knees and ask for money from Aubrey Plaza. And I thought, that's interesting. That's an interesting twist I didn't expect. I certainly didn't expect him to have half a CG face. Anyway, so that'd be a second. I don't know. That was a second favorite. Anyway, Alex, what do you got? What's your favorite scene?
Well, since you mentioned razzle dazzle, I think my favorite scene, in terms of just visceral impact, is the Vesta Sweetwater scene when she sings her song, and she's in the crescent moon cradle as she's flying through the air in Madison Square Garden, and then there's the multiple images of her. And I remember watching it when she's sitting there singing with her uke, and it's like, why does this seem so familiar? And then I realized Grace Vanderwaal, what was it, about 4 or 5 years ago, gained notoriety by being on America's Most Talented. And I remember seeing the scenes. It was like, because that's the show that really tries to push the whole "A Star is Born"
right
kind of thing. But she was one that I remember, and I remember thinking, God, this has such a Taylor Swift vibe. And I think it was, now I know it's intentional, because I remember Simon Cowell, when he was just singing her praises and saying, you could be the next Taylor Swift. And here she is, and she was because I had no idea, but I loved her whole, the virginal, the Vestal virginal.
What does that have to do with the Vestal virginal? I was a little confused by that.
I think it was trying to explain something about.
But why the scandal of the Vestal virgins?
Because she was supposed to be a virgin. I mean, she's selling her virginity.
I get what happened on screen, but thematically, what does it mean that she wasn't and it was a scam? We're all just prey to the media? Is that what you got out of it?
It could
We're
be.
prey to the hype. Was he just was he digging on Taylor Swift specifically?
I don't know if he was digging on Taylor Swift, but digging on the idea that they try to find some. I don't know. It's
What does the Vestal
I'm
Virgins?
almost-
What do the Vestal Virgins mean to Rome, though? I forget. I'm a little
Well, they
rusty
tried
on
to,
my
I think, yeah,
history.
so I have to look it up. But I
So-
know they tried to explain they were sort of like keepers of some sort of, they were like gatekeepers in their own way.
Right.
Joe's saying something, so maybe you know.
Okay.
Help
I
us,
know a
Joe.
little bit. So
Okay, help us.
Vesta was the goddess of the hearth. Basically, the idea was that she's kind of like one of the more important gods in the sense of she maintains the household. Like, this is somebody who you want to bless your house and things like that. I think with the Vestal Virgins, the kind of analogy that's being drawn, they were important in Rome. I don't recall exactly why. But I think that what I'm getting from all of that is this whole, like, I think that for our society, and I'm going to make big sweeping claims, but whatever. I think that for our society, like, we like to kind of prop up certain, like, idols, you know, in different ways as being like, oh, perfect and wonderful and untouched and all these wonderful, amazing things. And the reality is the people who are backing them, like, for the most part, everybody who's looking at them all are just basically stewing in their corruption.
Right.
And, like, this is the one, oh, perfect, wonderful, untouched spot in the midst of all this horrible, basically, like, orgy of terrible people. And so I feel like the sort of, oh, actually, how about that? She had sex and now this thing has been revealed. Everybody gets to act indignant that, oh my gosh, she's terrible and all these things without necessarily noticing their own flaws as a result.
I got a real Hunger Games vibe from that whole deal. More than Fellini at that point. If the promise, I don't know if you guys ever saw the Hunger Games. Did you see the Hunger Games, Alex?
No.
The very first.
I never have.
The promise of
I
the
guess
first.
I should.
The promise of the first movie is actually pretty cool because I remember getting chills up my spine where you see all these poor people who looks like they're in Appalachia, and then you see Elizabeth Banks. Yeah.
Yes.
And she's just decked out in this weird ass old lady hat and a wig and pale makeup, and she looks like a clown, and it's pretty eerie, but of course the rest of the movie just doesn't live up to that. But I got that sense of, okay, so here's this corrupt society where the rich people are really screwed up and they're making big deals out of nothing. So that's all, but I wasn't quite sure if I was quite getting that.
I think it does kind of play on the hypocrisy of people. It's as if, when we look to some of our favorite celebrities and we expect them to be a certain way, and then the scandal breaks out, and who are the first people to be indignant but the so-called fans? I don't know. And I love how they turn it around. She reinvents herself as the exact opposite.
Yeah.
Of what she was, and she continues her career, so to speak, which is like just like wow, we're
And I think that's art mimicking reality. I think there's a lot of different artists who, Taylor Swift as an example, like her early, not that I'm a huge Taylor Swift fan or anything like that, but like early music is all very light and fluffy and like, oh, optimistic and all these things, and it's like you listen to some of her more recent things and it's like bitter, like screw you if you disagree with me,
right?
Like I don't need anybody, I'm myself. It's like, okay, like I'm not saying that that's not empowering in a certain kind of way, but like I think there is a certain amount of like even the Vestal Virgins can't stay pure because the society that upholds them isn't. And even then, this corrupt society has a way of twisting it to even their own advantage of like.
It's like okay, I never really followed Miley Cyrus until she did her whole stupid twerking thing. Suddenly Hannah Montana, that every little girl grew up with. Thank God I didn't have daughters, but this pure little innocent girl from Disney, and so many Disney actors and actresses that seem to go that route, and then now they reinvent themselves and they become the bad girls or the bad boys. Go back and watch videos of Grace Vanderwaal when she was this innocent little girl on America. I don't know. It was a bold move for her to do this.
I've been following those shows. I haven't been following those shows for a while, so I didn't know what she was.
Never watched it. I just remember her playing her little ukulele, and she was one of those that just endeared herself to the audience. And, here she is as a young adult. And I thought I love that with that dress. Oh, you could see right through me. I mean, that was a great little moment.
Shifting gears a little bit, this is a moment, if I was going to say there was an element that I didn't think worked, it was the idea, this was a little self-indulgent. I thought Coppola sort of justifying his bad behavior, but that notion that you were talking about, Joe, of they don't take you seriously unless you're bad. I didn't think that quite stuck with Adam Driver. And truth be told, neither did his manipulation of time and space. if I was going to point out a weakness, I thought his manipulation of time and space could have had a bigger punch. But I don't care. I still like that it was a factor. Okay, just to simplify the question, Joe, what do you think the worst aspect of the film was, or worst scene?
I generally thought that the heavier sci-fi elements were an issue for me. Like, I think
the face, the
face,
the gadolinium,
these things that are like, okay, I mean, poorly defined. It's almost hard calling it a science fiction movie when so many of these elements are really more fantasy in nature. Because I feel like sci-fi is like, okay, yeah, you were looking towards the future. And
well, he calls it a fable, so...
Yeah, that's true. He does call it a fable. But I feel like it's been marketed as more on the sci-fi side of things.
They definitely marketed it like Armageddon or something. I mean, they definitely tried to market it as something concrete. And, they just blew it, because that's what marketers do, They just blow it. Like, okay, we got to sell them a big catastrophe movie, and that's just not it.
I feel like the magical elements of being able to pause time and those things, I wouldn't even say that I really hated them, but I felt like they were more distracting than anything else. And kind of, like, I think without those you would have you'd still have a very interesting story, but one that's maybe a little bit less convoluted.
Well, the story doesn't work without gadolinium. I think the story can work without time and space being halted, for sure.
Honestly, like, what was he except a really great architect? Like, you could have a great architect building great cities.
Another element, like Tony Stark.
True, but I don't think that's a necessary element even then. I mean, like, you could still have, like, okay, he's an amazing architect. Look at these amazing homes that he's building, or this incredible park that he has. But, I mean, as it is, like, looking at the city that he built, I'm like, how functional is this supposed to be? Like, I like artistic things as much as the next person, but, like, I'm looking at some of these weird, like, ridgy, swirly things, and I'm like, that's not... You couldn't have somebody stand up there, like, or be, like, involved in any of these cool-looking structures, as sci-fi and CGI as they are. I would think it'd be much more interesting having, like, okay, like, try and design actual really interesting buildings that are showing the grandeur or whatever, than just here's your, you've walked through a fairy tale world, and now here are your toadstools to sit on.
I don't know. I kind of dug the whole design of it, just on an aesthetic level. I thought it was, and I like the fact that there was something sinister about it too, that he was smashing people's pasts to build this future, and that was, it could be a problem with film, but he did highlight the fact that people were angry about it, which I thought was interesting. I don't know. There's a lot to take in. I have to see if that works. But yeah, I agree that I would definitely agree that the fantastical elements, probably, it's a little bit like the movie The Abyss, James Cameron's movie The Abyss. Without the aliens, you still have a really good white knuckle suspense movie. And so without the magical elements, you still have a story of two visions for the future. The mayor's or his. So anyway, Alex, thoughts on a weakness or any perceptible weakness?
I think it was several things that I felt they didn't explore enough. When you introduce a certain character, and you introduce that character's played by a formidable actor or actress, Nush. the Dustin Hoffman
Yeah.
character. I feel like there he is. He seems like an important part to the story, and then he just disappears.
Right.
And we just get this brief thing. The other thing that I wanted to see more of, because it was wonderful to see Talia Shire back, looking like a much longer in the tooth Nancy Pelosi. And I thought, oh, wicked, if that was intentional or not, I don't know.
I certainly doubt it.
But I
anyway.
wish, well, that was my fantasy.
Yeah.
If she starts playing with her teeth, I'll know. Alas,
I think
I felt like
Coppola's on the side of the Power Masters in this movie.
I'm
for
sure he is. He's a Bay Area boy.
Yeah.
I really like that dynamic between mother and son, and I wish I would have seen it go further.
I think so.
You know,
Yeah, he
we
did
see
wrap
that
He wrapped it up with
he
a tidy
wrapped
little
it
bow.
up, but I
Yeah.
wanted something a little
No, it
bit
was a
more.
little too tidy.
Yeah, it was a little tidy because she was wonderful.
Yeah.
For what little she had, it was
Yeah.
like, damn, she still got it.
Yeah,
Just like
she-
her brother, she's got some.
I gotta say, Jason
Brio?
Schwartzman wasn't given much.
No, and he was funny.
Yeah.
Those little moments, just smile, just smile, just
Yeah.
smile.
Yeah, he was fine, but he and Dustin Hoffman
Well-
probably came off. I think D.B. Sweeney and James Remar
Sweeney,
made more of an
yeah.
impression than Jason Schwartzman.
Yeah.
But anyway, we
Well,
haven't
and
gotten
then
the
the one
performance
who
yet.
made a real impression was somebody I've never seen before, and that's Bailey Ives, who plays Huey, Shia LaBeouf's muscle. And it's like, who is that guy? He looks familiar, but this is the only thing he's done.
Huh.
And there's no IMDb just had best known for Megalopolis.
Huh.
It's like no bio, no where did he go to school? Is he a theater guy? Or was he just somebody that Coppola said he's the perfect guy? He just had that look. He was
Yeah.
interesting. I
Yeah, he
enjoyed
was.
but I don't know if you noticed, but when they're being hung at the end, both he and Shia LaBeouf, Bailey is doing, or Huey's doing like that power salute, even as he's being hung upside down,
Yeah.
defiant to the end.
Right. No, I got that.
It's for an epic movie. I think it needed a little bit more of an epic time in terms of length. Epic movies. I think you could have tacked
Really?
on a little
No,
bit
I
more.
thought.
Well,
I thought
because I
it's-
wanted to see more. I wanted to see more in terms of don't introduce these characters or these elements and then run away. Maybe that wasn't his intent. I don't know, but I wanted to
he
see
probably
more
wanted
with
to-
Talia
Yeah.
Shire. I really did.
Maybe. I think the resolution with her character needed to be a little less perfunctory. But yeah, I thought it was a perfect length. I maybe I would have gotten bored if it was longer. I'm not sure. I wasn't bored while I was watching it for sure.
Mm-mm.
I was pretty interested in just the sort of audacity of it all.
Yeah.
And I think
Well,
excuse
that's
me,
the strength of the movie. I
Dead
think.
Wife was interesting. All that, there was a lot of interest, a lot of visual and emotional interest, more than I thought would be, for sure. So I went in thinking I was just going to just like, I don't love Dracula, as we cataloged in our podcast
Yeah.
about it. I thought this was a more realized sort of hell for leather, I'm going to throw everything at the screen. I thought it was a more fulfilling version of that kind of filmmaking.
But you still had to admire Dracula for what he did.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
I
still
admire it,
but it
I
just
I think it's missing a center with Winona
something-
Ryder,
yeah.
as I said in our podcast.
Well,
This
and poor
didn't miss a center.
poor
I thought,
Keanu Reeves.
I thought Nathalie Emmanuel and Adam Driver were enough of a compelling couple with enough chemistry where I felt that the center was held. It wasn't amazing. It wasn't thrilling. It wasn't little hint of our next forthcoming podcast. It wasn't Christopher Reeve and Jane Seymour, but it was still palpable enough where I was rooting for the characters.
Yeah. No. It's I genuinely, when she's on the train with her parents and their child, there is a sense of impending doom.
Oh, I
that
thought they were
could
going to get
possibly.
killed.
I
thought they
kept
were gonna
waiting
get
for that
killed.
moment. I kept waiting for that. Oh God, it's going to come.
Yeah.
So that says something about the director, and I think the performances, that you do care about these characters.
Yeah.
There was enough. I mean, yeah. So credit to Coppola and credit to the actors.
Yeah. No, he definitely throughout the film he's subverting expectations. I mean, I was constantly okay. Now they're gonna die, and he's gonna go
Yeah.
crazy or something, or stop time or whatever. No, it didn't happen. That could be good or bad. It didn't seem stupid though. Sometimes things don't have the obvious things don't happen, and you get mad. In this case, I didn't feel angry at the how the story unfolded. Would you agree with that, Joe? You're nodding. I mean, it didn't seem pat.
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't know. I think there's some interesting kind of questions that are raised by the movie. I think one thing that stands out is, I mean, I was doing a little bit of research on it and talking about how it's drawing from Roman history and like the Catiline conspiracy, and which later fueled Julius Caesar eventually getting assassinated, and it feels a lot like the kind of question that is asked is like, well, what if, like, it would have been a good thing if Caesar had kept on living and like had been allowed to do what he was going to do, kind of. And then the end conclusion is kind of like, actually, yeah, you should have let Caesar live. Like Caesar was the right solution all along.
Yeah, no, I definitely got that. Which again, my first thought when I left the theater was bonkers, bananas. This movie's crazy. Like I just can't believe he's doing this in our face. He's not going. Nope. You know what sucks is the populism and the plebes. You know who's great is awesome men like me. that's I'm like, wow, I just didn't think he was gonna do that, but he did it, and I'm like, okay, fine, he did it, and I didn't expect it, and okay, fair enough. It's a perspective. At least it's a perspective. That's what I was thinking. Like, all right, well, you and Ayn Rand can have that perspective. I'm not sure I agree with it, but in this movie I thought it worked more or less. It's not quite great. It's not Apocalypse Now. It's not The Godfather, but it's still some sort of tangible puzzle to work out.
Yeah.
Or
it's got a lot of layers.
It's a visceral puzzle that I'm happy to review and revisit.
Yeah.
You agree with that, Joe? You said it.
Oh,
you said you would definitely read it.
I would say it's definitely a puzzle.
Yeah.
And I'd say that it wasn't one that I managed to work out in the 2 hours and 10 minutes of running time.
Right.
Or however much it was, 2 hours and 12 minutes or something. But I mean, it is puzzling, and there's a lot of, I mean, like, and even for me, like, I've never been to New York. And I feel like there are lines that are being drawn between New York and ancient Rome are such that I'm like, I understand ancient Rome better than I understand New York. If kind of these are the things that he's drawing as parallels.
Yeah.
And I think for me, it's the sort of thing where just the very premise of the film is kind of in some ways hard for me to fully wrap my head around in a real not useful, but like complete way. Because I'm trying to understand what are you saying that you think like New York City, like America could fall in the same kind of way if we're not listening to our future emperors?
I feel like he's almost saying he wants it to.
Yeah, and it's like it's just one of those things that it's hard to tease out.
He's like, ordinarily I'd be furious at these concepts, but I don't know why I kind of thought, well, this is like a fever dream of his rantings about. He does believe, in my mind, he believes in a globalist solution to this all. Am I wrong, Alex? Was I wrong? I mean, that last placard of the Pledge of Allegiance to the global community. What else am I supposed to get from it?
I don't know. I can't help but think about Laurence Fishburne's line, who serves as sort of the chorus, the narrator in the chorus of the movie.
Yeah.
Who's there to remind us of the story and how it's going, when he says something about how a culture, how a society dies. And it's not like one big catastrophic event. And usually when it dies is when everyone stops caring.
Right.
That's when it begins. And it's like, yeah. it's always in a subtle way. I mean, you know, and maybe that was his intent with the going back to the idea of the Russian satellite falling. You know, anyone else, like in the hands of Michael Bay, it would just be huge explosions and entire cities being wiped out. And it's like it really comes as a whisper, really more of a whisper than a scream. But you know, it's just as devastating. The idea that once you stop caring, it's, you know, and you really get that feel from the very beginning, especially when they go into Madison Square Garden, which is their modern day Coliseum, and just everything is permissible. There's just, you know, everything's on the table. It doesn't matter. Everything is allowed. And in the stories that you hear of Rome in its dying days, it's just, you know, there's no restraint. There's no modesty. It's just out in the open.
I got that. I mean, that was the sense I got just from the idea of it, from when I was reading synopsis and whatnot. I'm not sure. I kind of agree with Joe, but I think he carries it through sheer filmmaking moxie. I agree that those ideas aren't tangible. There's not a tangible sense of corollary between New York and Rome, you know, because he does have so many fantastic elements to it, you know. So
wouldn't you say though that the Madison Square Garden scenes come close? Just
but it is so otherworldly. It doesn't. I can't relate completely to our day. You know, we look at what's happening with P. Diddy and Jeffrey Epstein and all these things. It just feels like it could have been a little. Like, I don't know if he was even thinking in those terms, but in terms of the collapse, you know, a collapse would happen from without, as we look within, as the human, as the rabble, the people he's sort of dismissing in the film, as if I do feel like them rising up should have been more about. It should have been a bigger part of the film, possibly.
Well, again, not exploring enough.
Yeah, maybe
like
you're
he could have
right
gone further. He could have gone a little further with
Shia LeBeouf's sort of getting the people to realize that, you know, the power masters and the people in charge are screwing us over. Mm-hmm. So
I think they could have gone further. I mean, if you're going to make those parallels with Mussolini, you know, because I can only imagine that when he comes to power, they're just El Duce. I mean, he made the trains run on time. He did everything that he said he was going to do.
Right.
And yet how quick they turn.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not quick, but over the years, it's you know, and again, maybe just an accumulation of small things until people have finally reached a boiling point.
I'm kind of curious to know what you guys think about, like, the fact that Shia LaBeouf's character ends up being the one to rile up these masses, and they're the ones that kind of rally behind him and protesting, like Caesar Catalina, who's his cousin.
Yes.
And like he's, you know, clearly well off, extremely wealthy and everything else, and is acting like, oh, I'm just one of you plebs too. I mean, I feel like there's a certain amount of like gullibility that he's assuming that the masses automatically have, that it's like, wouldn't you be like, isn't that that rich banker's kid that's telling all of us that we're all being oppressed?
I honestly thought I think he was drawing a definite conclusion or parallel to Trump in that case.
Okay. Yeah.
Did he explore it to its not logical but emotionally satisfying conclusion? No, I don't think so. But part of me doesn't care, you know, just because of, you know, this is hypocrisy, I think. Maybe I'm just rooting for Coppola naturally, you know, my natural sort of love for his filmmaking, that I'm excusing a lot of obvious weaknesses. But I don't know. I can't explain why it didn't bother me that much. I guess there was just enough visually and philosophically to keep me going, like, well, this is one aspect. Could have been explored better and stronger and more menacingly? Yes, for sure.
Well, I think what's interesting, what's the word I want to say? The locus, or the thing that motivates Shia LaBeouf's character more than anything is just spite.
Yeah.
You know, the fact that, you know, I'm smart, I'm just as smart as you, I'm just as talented. Why don't they like me? I mean, it's such a petulant thing, and it's
I
just,
wondered where that was coming from, because Coppola is such a la familia type guy, and the film even ends on that note.
yeah.
Is it
Well,
Nicolas Cage? Was he Nicolas Cage? I mean,
well,
what's going
Nicolas
on in this film? What
Cage
is going?
was-
Who is this
yeah.
character, and where is he
I
coming
don't know.
from? Because he is
Is
a
it
family
supposed to-
member.
Is he supposed to be Fredo? I don't know.
I don't know. It just feels like I just felt that this is a personal story. I mean, ultimately, this is a personal story about, you know.
Well,
I lived
yeah.
a life that's true. He even mentioned there's even a reference to Sinatra in it.
Well, you think about, you know, I guess I'll reference Godfather 2, back at the compound after Fredo returns. I'm smart. I'm good. Why not me? You know, and just really, I mean, your heart goes out to Fredo, but at the same time, it's like, Fredo, I wouldn't follow you into a grocery store. I'm sorry.
Right.
I'm sorry. You're a
Right.
good guy, but you really are a puppy dog.
But this was the petulant, like, undermining the family character.
Yeah.
And
not that Fredo would, but
it doesn't have to be personal to Coppola. But what's
maybe it
he
was
trying
more.
to say about
Maybe
it?
it was more the brother-in-law from the first movie.
Oh, Carlo.
Carlo, yeah. Who is? Yeah,
But
maybe
it
there's a
has
little bit of that.
certain thematic unity with its other films, and I'm wondering where this is. What exactly? I mean, obviously there was parallels to Trump. It didn't go where it needed to go. I felt, even if you were going to make the corollary between Mussolini and Claudio or whatever his name was.
Claudio, yeah. I think they
It
pronounce
was
it
spelled
Claudio.
Claude, not this.
Yeah.
Wasn't the true.
Probably deliberate.
Yeah. I thought, well, but I liked Shia LaBeouf. I thought he brought a lot to it. You know, in the incestuous aspect of it all, and
Oh yeah.
that was a little much.
I feel like that's just Roman decadence.
Yeah.
What I love
that
too
period.
is it's not even
Yeah.
it's not even a secret. I think when they're being introduced, I think when they come to Madison Square Garden, there he is with his sisters, and something about they're probably sleeping with each other, you know,
Yeah.
almost as if. But who cares?
And there was this Saturday Night Live
part of his-
actress. I just looked her up. I just found out she's on Saturday Night Live.
Was she one of the sisters?
She was his sister. Yeah,
Okay, there's
the one he was sleeping with. So anyway, she's.
Okay, well I couldn't
Um,
tell you an SNL
yeah,
actor these days. That's why they keep bringing back all the old people.
weird. Anyway, shall we move on to?
Yes.
Have we discovered the deep meaning of it all? If there is, you know, there's plenty more to look into, and I wonder if we should have waited and watched it again. Maybe we'll do a 2025 revisit after we've.
I think you ought to. I think you should do it and cross-reference it with some of those other movies.
Yeah.
I do. I really do.
Yeah.
You know, maybe that'll help. I mean, go back and watch the Rumblefish, Tucker,
Yeah.
the Godfather series,
Yeah.
of course.
We've done the Godfather, but it'd be interesting because it'd be interesting to definitely bring Rumblefish, Tucker, Godfather 3 possibly. You know?
Possibly. But even in Rumblefish, you've got the younger brother. I mean, it's different, but the way he emulates the older brother.
Yeah.
And that whole idea, you know, when Nicolas Cage says, you know, you're a good lieutenant, but nobody would follow you into a fight. You know,
Yeah.
you can't lead a gang. You're not.
Well,
you're
it
not
plays a lot in the Coppola's screenplays. Now, obviously, Mario Puzo came up with it, but it seems to be that's what I'm thinking. There's these recurring themes that Coppola, like, filmmakers aren't that deep sometimes. They just, you know, Terrence Malick keeps dwelling on the death of his brother. You know, I mean, there's these things that people dwell on and bring out in their art.
Yeah.
And I'm curious
That's a
as to,
good
I'd be
point.
really curious as to what he's thinking with these characters, you know, because there's definitely a personal level to it. I definitely felt the longing for his wife in this film,
Yeah.
you know, and then of course the final, for Eleanor, the final
For
verbiage.
Eleanor.
So
Well,
anyway.
it's the least he could do for all the
yeah.
hanky panky he did.
Well, and there it was. He was making that. So that, as I said, it wasn't that successful. But he makes that scene where you know where Caesar Catalina is getting high and drunk, but he's letting the world. He's losing his powers of time. and he lets Shia LaBeouf get him. You know, when he downloads the video of Grace Vanderwaal, which was a fraud, by the way.
Yes.
I thought that was a cop-out.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I don't, unless he's trying to make commentary on today.
All right. So let's dig into the technical / peripheral contributions from the rest of the cast and crew. So, how do you rate? Well, we've kind of talked about it, but let's just give Adam Driver a rating. Alex, give his performance a rating.
I'm going to give him a solid 7. You know, it was a good performance. I seem to think that Adam Driver really thrives with the Noah Baumbach type stories.
Doesn't it?
You know, the more personal, independent.
Yeah.
But, you know, and he doesn't seem to have a very good track record with the big budget movies, as you've mentioned.
Yeah.
You know, especially when, oh, mamma mia, that's a faster car. I'm Enzo Ferrari. You drive, huh?
You're making him sound good.
Sorry. Oops.
Yeah.
No, but I felt like he really stayed in his lane, you know, an Adam Driver lane, and he is an unconventional leading man, that's for sure. He's not the most handsome. You know, I feel good standing next to a guy like
he's
that.
Like Steve Buscemi or Jeff Goldblum, chicks dig him.
No, they have
reason.
an appeal. Yeah, he has an appeal.
I'm always perplexed. But Adam Driver, he's brings an attractive package, I suppose. He seems like he's in command of his own persona. So he, you know, I always think he seems cool.
No, there's a confidence in him for sure.
Yeah, when he isn't confident is when he's doing that ridiculous Italian accent. So that's where I go, whoa, he's the wrong guy. Because he's the wrong guy. But in this case, thank God he didn't do the Italian accent.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
Coppola saw fit. Hey, stop that.
Yeah. All right, Joe, what do you think? How do you rate this performance?
I would put him at, I mean, for the film, I'd put him at an 8.
8? More than a 7?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I was
the man's entitled to his opinion.
Sure. I started off at 8. I was thinking, I was kind of like going down towards 7, but I didn't want to copy anyone. So
I thought you didn't like him though. I thought you weren't in favor of him.
I think within the context of the movie, I don't think his acting was necessarily bad. I don't think that.
Did you buy his persona?
I mostly bought it. I think the whole idea of him being like this genius that nobody really quite understands, and how he has to act extravagant. I mean, like the whole Hamlet speech at the beginning, well, kind of like, okay, you could have stopped, you know, a couple stanzas ago, you know, or you know, whatever. But like I feel like that does kind of exemplify parts of his character. And there were times when I'm like, oh, like especially like after he got shot and he's like crying and like visibly like mentally disturbed, which granted, you were shot in the head, that'd be kind of expected. But I thought that like it was very believable. I thought that even though like the mother storyline didn't really go anywhere, you still got the impression that like this is something he's been dealing with for a while and he's not gonna be petulant about it, but it's like, okay, this is the way that she is, sure. I'm not gonna try and fight this or anything. And then they're sort of kind of making up ish thing where he goes, Mom, like, okay. And I guess that was enough. Maybe.
Alex is right. I could have certainly had 2 or 3 more scenes with Talia Shire just demanding that she be invited to a party or something to show that sort of influence of.
Well, it was just Mom. Great to see that she has, you know, that she, you know, she's not just Adrian, that she does have some.
No, I've known that for a while about.
Yeah,
Talia
what
Shire.
she has, but
yeah,
you know, it's like God, and she's she's settled into her age, and she did a wonderful job. I wanted to see more.
Yeah, I don't know why she's not getting more parts, because she can certain play the scary Angelica Houston witch parts.
Mm.
You
Mhm.
know?
Yeah, no,
Anyway,
she was great.
But I think he had a good charisma to him as well.
Yeah.
Like, that wasn't overdone. He was witty enough when he needed to be witty as a character. And I thought that it was overall a pretty believable performance.
Did you get an Elon Musk vibe from him? Was there a
Oh, yeah.
kind of I thought he brought the kind of strange Elon, what does Elon Musk have? Not Tourette's. It's not it's not when you're autistic, but it's what is it? Does he have autism? I forget.
I don't know.
Yeah,
he has a lot of money. I know that.
Oh, yeah.
Is that an affliction?
I want to say Tourette's, but it's not. It's all.
No,
I'm
I
being
don't know.
dumb.
I'll have to look it up.
Freeze
Do you
up
mean,
behind the mic.
Do you mean like Asperger's?
Asperger. That's it. Yeah.
Okay,
It's
he's
been
on
wrapped
the.
It's been wrapped into autism now.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
Yeah. So, but he seemed a little like that, and I thought that was.
Well, when you think about it, yeah, it's just and I guess you could say that about Adam Driver's character, that they just see things that we don't. I mean, I think about Patty's brother Mike. Definitely. I mean, he's way off on the other side of the spectrum, but the way that he looks, they do have a very unique way of seeing things. And they just seem to have a capacity for things that just blow our minds. That whole thing with numbers. But yeah, I mean, Adam Driver's character.
They didn't mention it. I just felt that was a subconscious choice to bring.
It's possible
because Adam Driver does sort of bring a coldness, not always, but there is a certain coldness to his presence that works. It works in his favor. I mean, it's not a criticism. It's actually. He has a sort of aloof Leonard Nimoy-ish quality about him.
Well, I think about the very first time I ever paid attention to him was Inside Llewyn Davis.
Yeah.
And he was a bit of an oddball, but he was compelling.
Well, he was playing sort of a yokel in a sense.
A yokel, but a very kind of just almost with a kind of Tourette's quality in a way, but still very compelling character. It's like, who is this guy with that deep voice?
Huh.
And that interesting look, a scarecrowish kind of look. So he's done a great job at least cultivating that in his career. And yeah, just stay away from the big budget.
Not to get
not
too
the big
far
budget,
into Star Wars, but I think he does fine as Kylo Ren. I mean,
well, see, I've only seen the first one.
Yeah, I don't think that doesn't count against him. Not nearly as much as House of Gucci
No. I'm talking
Ferrari.
about. Those are the ones I'm talking about. Those
just flat out turkeys.
Getting out of your
they
lane.
Are turkeys.
Yeah, getting out of your lane. No. Go back. Don't do accents, please.
Well, even if he didn't do the accent, he's just wrong. Like, okay. I don't buy him in either part. Even if Ridley Scott or Michael Mann said, "Yeah, we're not going to do accents," because again, would you filmmakers wake up? Accents are stupid.
Okay, well, you want to talk about some filmmakers that seem to have lost the point, or that. Their best days are behind them.
Yeah,
I mean,
for sure.
Coppola somehow has held on to that.
I think Coppola came barreling back in a big way where at least I want to look at his films again, whereas Michael Mann, I'm like,
well, now it makes sense when you think about those movies that people poo-poo, the conventional movies, and I think he was doing it because he needed the money.
Yeah.
So when he's doing something like Jack with Robin Williams, what else did he do during that?
John Grisham one.
The John Grisham one,
it was really called?
Rainmaker.
Rainmaker,
yeah. It was more. You find out that it was like, I was in debt.
Yeah.
I had to pay my debts. It's a lot better than doing porn.
Yeah. No, I think I never even seen Jack, but the Rainmaker was a crushing disappointment.
I never saw it, but yeah. Well, 2 words. Danny DeVito.
Exactly. All right. Okay. So let's give a rating to our good, not friend, but the up and coming Nathalie Emmanuel. I thought she was a little wooden, a little stiff in some scenes, but I liked her overall. I really liked her. So I'm gonna give her a solid 6.5.
Oh, really?
Points down for. Oh, and I never rated Adam Driver. I'm with you. 7, solid 7.
Okay.
Wasn't his best work, but he didn't embarrass himself. 6.5 to Nathalie Emmanuel for being captivating and alluring, and bringing the requisite ingenue / supportive quality that a good wife partner is supposed to bring. So I thought she did a credible job of, she had chemistry with him. And that's big on my mind lately. Joe Fields, you're nodding in agreement.
Yeah, I would give her a 7. I think that she actually provided more of sort of an everyman role to some extent.
Yeah.
In the sense of like, okay, if we're going to start learning about this weird, seemingly mad genius who's spouting off Shakespeare at random times, that she's kind of an interesting character to kind of be curious about and follow along on that adventure. I think that she was pretty believable in terms of her interest, in terms of just how she interacted with him, and I do think that they had pretty good chemistry.
Yeah. I would say, if anything, her switch from party girl to empathetic, supportive wife was a bit much, but she sold it. So I didn't think about it until after I finished watching it. Like, yeah, she was supposed to be sort of flighty and, like upper class. They didn't give her... I mean, obviously in the first scene when she sees his powers at play, or not the first scene, but her first big moment with him, that could have been a little bit more earth-shattering, I suppose, in terms of breaking her away from her superficial lifestyle. I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking it. But I did feel like... I like the scene where she came to work for him. But I'm not sure Did we understand where that's coming from? Do we need one more scene there? Was there an extra scene needed where she needs to write in her journal, I need to find out what this guy's about? To make it obvious.
That's
but
possible.
I just thought her transition was a little quick, but I like the concept of it. And I bought her. I thought she held the screen, which is, like I say, a big issue of mine lately, where romantic interests have no reason to be. And I did think Coppola's romanticism was better. In fact, I was rooting for her more than I was Winona Ryder, who I thought was one of the worst romantic leads in any movie in Dracula.
You don't say.
Yeah, I've gone on that tangent before. Anyway. All right, best supporting actor in the film.
Alex hasn't said anything yet.
Oh, did you not
It's okay.
rate it? Did you
No,
rate
because
it?
I'm used to you ignoring me. That's okay.
Well, again, I talk so much. I think it's your
Mamma mia!
Okay, give me a rating for her.
I'm going to give you a 7.
Oh.
A 7, because I think I'll agree, a little wooden, but she holds her own. She is captivating, and I forgot that she was Mizandre from Game of Thrones.
No.
Who
I
kind of
didn't-
stood out in her own way and had one of the more tragic deaths in that episode.
I know,
That you really felt like, oh, why her? Why her?
Yeah, I couldn't forget that. I knew that's where she was from. I knew she was all about
and
Game of Thrones.
She's a Brit, but no.
Yeah.
Compelling enough that I want to see more of her. And she does. I mean, she wasn't, we're not talking about an electrifying performance, but a solid performance.
Sure.
I liked her. I think she did what she had to do.
I can see why you cast her, for sure. Okay. We can't really compare, so let's just rate. How do you rate Giancarlo Esposito? Alex Robertson.
9. Solid 9. He was great. He really was. It's great to see him break out of the Gus Fring role, which he was good in. But there is, what I love about Giancarlo Esposito's acting, especially as he's getting older, is there's a kind of restraint that he has, that he doesn't have to overdo it.
Yeah.
He really does have a presence, that guy.
Well, if you look at him at, Do the Right Thing, it's just
That's
so
very
funny.
different.
Or any of those Spike Lee films.
Well, with the
it's
big,
just
thick glasses.
It's just so funny how now his shtick is restrained and held because he was not holding back in those days.
No.
He was in your face. So it's almost funny that when he first shows up as Gus Fring, I'm like, that's so funny that he's playing so like buttoned down and like just keeping all his emotions in check.
Right. But when you have those shocking moments, but what I loved about this, the shocking moments weren't these acts of violence, but just this tenderness. I love, when he holds his grandchild. Yeah. And that, that's where you're really just afraid for this character because of what they're going through, and like, oh God, please no, please don't let there's that gunshot.
I thought the crowd was gonna get him
somehow.
Sure.
So you do care for this guy.
Yeah. And that's a strange thing because I didn't expect that to be.
No.
I thought, wow, that's funny. I really feel for this character.
And that great scene when they go to visit Megalopolis and the wife gets on the moving sidewalk and just, he's like a child. And she's like, come on, holding her hand out to him.
Back to the plot for a second. When did, maybe I nodded off. I don't know. I got a little drowsy at one point. But I wasn't bored. I was just tired. So I wasn't focusing. When did Adam Driver reject his plea to forget Nathalie Emmanuel? He says, here's the deal, I confess, or here's the letter proving all. And then did that get forgotten? Is that
I think
me?
it did. I don't think they went far enough. Again.
So Adam Driver just ignores it, right? Like,
he
okay,
seems
whatever.
to. Yeah,
whatever. I don't care.
There's never the reconciliation scene between the two of them. It's like they're always there.
He basically, framed him for murder. Like,
yeah.
So then next thing you know, they're best buddies. I don't know where that was coming. Again, if I was in a more critical, is it just me being a Coppola apologist? Because that is sort of a weakness, right?
In terms of, I'm sorry, a weakness for?
In the story. Like, wait a minute.
I think it was a weakness.
Frame your son-in-law for murder.
and that's,
saying, stay away from my daughter and all
that's yeah, and that's that was a compelling plot point. Like, ooh, what's he going to do? This is, what does the hero do? What does the protagonist do?
Yeah.
And I think it, and I guess I'd have to see it again to see. It's like, okay, maybe it was so subtle. So
yeah, it got lost in the edit somewhere because they seem like best of friends, even though he got shot in the face, so that happens. So I don't know. Anyway, just another thought.
I forgive you.
Okay, so so you rate him a 9. Joe, how do you rate our friend Giancarlo Esposito?
I would rate him maybe more. I tend to be going with this number a lot, but 7.
Okay.
I thought that he did well. It was an interesting role, and it was definitely good seeing him in not as much of a mustache twirling villain role as he's been kind of pegged as in recent years. And actually, like, coming across as a guy who's just trying to make things work, who has his misgivings about this, ingenious inventor, and kind of is worried about like this big upheaval. I think that he played the role well and wasn't trying to. I mean, at no point did I think like this is the most charismatic, like politician that they have. Like I was getting the sense like, okay, this guy is a mayor who's trying to run things and is trying his best to kind of campaign and to some extent and do what's right, but he's not the same kind of, he doesn't have the same charisma that someone like Adam Driver has in his role. And like there's, I don't know, I think it played well because I think that Giancarlo has a lot of natural charisma. And I think he brings that into almost every role that he has. So kind of playing that down a little bit was a much more interesting choice, and I think it was the right one for the character as well.
Well, it's interesting just to me that he's not incompetent, but he's beleaguered. And that, again, feeds into this strange sort of, what's the word? When counterintuitive notion that the politicians are the good guys.
Well, you mentioned
the city
beleaguered.
planners are the good guys.
I think the great scene when you're talking about beleaguered, when he's walking down the street with his own little parade, proudly displaying himself, and then they have to stop for Adam Driver's motor. What? I mean, again, it's
there was something very Fritz Freeling about it. It had a very,
there was a comical,
very cartoony part.
It's Yosemite Sam trying to win over the crowd.
Right, that the tone shifts are, but the tone shifts are so abrupt and contrasting that it almost seems funny on purpose. Like he's just
Well, again,
he's
and
just
it's
throwing it all out
just-
there.
and
Kinda
that's
like
why you wanted.
Rumblefish too. If
And
you
that's
think
why you
about
wanted more.
Rumblefish, you know.
And that's why you wanted more Jason Schwartzman, because the way, after the whole thing, and Jason Schwartzman is with that painted on smile, and you can hear him saying, just smile, waving to the crowd. It's a wonderful moment.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, just go with it. Just accept the fact.
All right, well, let's go to our man Shia LeBeouf. How do you do? Give him a rating.
Ooh.
Oh, and I didn't rate
Yes, you rate,
Giancarlo.
rate,
I
rate.
just
Yeah.
I'm gonna give him a 8.5 for sure.
Okay.
And maybe a point and a half down for not fulfilling the promise of the blackmail, or not the blackmail, but the sort of tit for tat scene. Yeah. So Shia LaBeouf, Alex, what do you got?
I got a 9.5.
Oh, almost.
I got a
10.
9.5, almost a 10, because it was. I'll say this: that could have been a very over-the-top performance.
Yeah.
And if anyone's capable, it's somebody like Shia LaBeouf. But I think as he gets older, he gets a little smarter. And maybe credit to Coppola for like, hey, pull it back there, punk. But
It seems pretty
that
over the top to me, but not in an embarrassing, stupid
no.
way.
That's what I'm saying. It's like I'm talking about over the top, like too self-aware.
Yeah.
When you watch those actors, and it's just like, yeah, I can see you watching yourself, and it's annoying.
Yeah.
As opposed to somebody that really commits to this.
See,
this
the thing
petty.
that I commend Coppola for is I absolutely hate Moulin Rouge. I hate most of the only Terry
Never
Gilliam
saw it.
the only Terry Gilliam I like is
Fisher.
Brazil. I like like Fisher King.
And Fisher
But I'm
King.
not a big Time Bandits fan, and I can't stand whatchamacallit, but Baron Munchausen.
Nobody.
So it's just like I really get irritated when people are going over the top spaz and just like in your face. And for some reason, Coppola, I thought I was in for this. I thought, it's going to be one of these films, Baz Luhrmann Spectacular. But it didn't do it, and I thought, okay, it didn't.
No,
it
credit
didn't
to Shire.
irritate me. It didn't
No.
irritate me.
No, and it was perfect because I think it was an honest performance.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy, that's just motivated by his own ego.
Yeah.
Spite.
Yeah.
Yeah, just pettiness, and it was great.
Yeah. Joe, how do you rate him?
I'm gonna give him a 10.
Wow.
Awesome.
Your numberings, Joe, are adding up to a film that you like. Because
Yeah,
if you
Joe,
don't
in
like
spite
the
of yourself.
film, if you don't like the film, everybody be rated it a 4.
Well,
I think it'd be interesting, like you said, to come back in 6 months or so and visit this movie again and
It
see
could
what
be.
like, wow, more layers than I thought.
I think that I think an actor can have a good performance in a movie that isn't great.
Sure.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
There are plenty of examples of that. I think that I'm rating them within the context of the film and the characters they were portraying and what they had. Did they do a good job of acting in that? I mean, if you take one of these actors and put them into a different movie and give them the same role, maybe it won't work. But within this movie, these are the ratings that I'm giving them. I think a 10 works because he's believably outlandish. And you don't usually have those two things together, but he does a good job of playing. I mean, I think he's a really interesting kind of foil to Adam Driver's character. In the sense that both of them, I mean, Adam Driver is the one who has the speech about seeming mad from Hamlet. And what is Hamlet except this prince trying to act crazy so that way he can, kill his uncle. And I think that the same exact thing is being played out by Shia LaBeouf's character. Like, he's also acting crazy, but he actually has plans that he's kind of trying to enact. And he's scheming. And yeah, he's doing all these outlandish things. And, he's cross-dressing and he's putting on eyeliner and he's doing all these stupid, ridiculous little things. But all of it is calculated at the same time. And it seems like, I'm just doing this because I just lust for life, kind of. Yeah. But beneath that is like a real dangerous scheming. And I don't think he ever loses sight of it. I don't think it ever reaches a level of being too much, even though he is to some extent, a larger than life character. Despite that, and I think that any scene that he was in, he kind of stole the spotlight. Like, you were I was kind of immediately drawn to whatever he was doing, and I mean, not in a, I mean, he just had this. I mean, I also exuded a certain kind of charisma, even if it was a much crazier, dangerous, unpredictable aspect.
Yeah.
And so I kind of like that, and I like that. I mean, I also kind of like the character that he's to some extent portraying. I mean, you see other. I mean, I think he is sort of that corruption in Rome personified as as a person.
He's like a Caligula.
Yeah,
He's a
yeah,
Caligula.
for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
A little guy, a little man.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, there was so much. I mean, in ancient Rome, there was so much backstabbing that happened when it came to things like who inherited whose money, and like the Roman emperors would like name tons of people as heirs, and then when the Roman emperor died, it was like an all-out game of like who's gonna kill who first,
Right.
and make it seem like they didn't.
Right.
You know,
Great
And
drama. Great
it's
drama.
I mean, it's crazy the amount of stuff that was going on, and all of it or most of it very corrupt. And so
Yeah.
I think that the role that he had was just it condensed all of that into like one single person, and he carried it well. Like he took that role and ran with it. And so that's why I feel like a 10 is good for him.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
agreed.
definitely give him a solid 9 for sure. Just again, it's not his fault. It's just sort of the way it's written. I've already mentioned the reasons. You know, things did sort of fall off the cliff in a sense. But that's more about the screenplay and the direction. But yeah, for sure he brought his A game, and I hope, you know, even though he's canceled how many times over, I hope he continues to get roles, because he is proving to be like, even in Padre Pio, he was really, really good. The movie was a little iffy, but he was great. So I hope people recognize that.
Abel Ferrara, that's all
Yeah,
you need.
yeah. His
A man with his own issues.
Well, it's funny. Coppola could easily be criticized for the same sorts of problems, but as I said, I think he just pulled it off. All right, last one. Oh, two more of the main cast. So Aubrey Plaza. Joe, you didn't like her. What's the rating?
4.
Oh,
Wow.
okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's just I feel like I'm only seeing just shades of Aubrey Plaza, and
Did you see Emily the Criminal?
I have not.
She was very good in that. So I mean, and then I like that Jason Statham movie she did. She was fantastic. You know, playing the sort of wiseacre computer program. I'm probably not different from what she does on Parks and Rec,
Sure.
but she, you know, I thought she's a capable leading lady. So I think she's good.
I don't. I mean, I don't hate her as. I don't have anything particularly against her. I liked her on Parks and Rec, you know, for the character that she was. But I just, whenever, I mean, if we're gonna draw parallels, like other characters who were from there, like I see Chris Pratt in other things, but I don't think that he's that same character that he played on Parks and Rec. Like I mean, granted, he's now kind of pigeonholed into a lot of action-y kinds of movies where he's a little bit of a smart aleck, but that's still quite different from that role.
But Aubrey Plaza started sort of playing the bookish nerd kind of smartass, right? She was sort of
She played kind of like a dark, like, I don't know how to put this exactly, but like she played more not quite goth, but
yeah,
like goth, sarcastic.
That's how she was in that Adam
like-
Sandler movie with Seth Rogen. What was it
Yeah.
called? Funny People? Was that what it was?
Jeez.
Where
Long
where
time.
Adam Sandler's got cancer and she plays the girlfriend. Anyway, she I just think she's blossomed into sort of a solid leading lady at this point. So, and she's sexy where she didn't seem sexy before. So now she seems like she's owning her late 30s, whatever she's in, but she seems like she's much more of a movie star. That's how I feel about her.
Yeah.
So, I'm giving her
Okay.
a whopping 8.5. I thought she was great. Alex?
I give her an 8.
Okay.
And to be honest, I've never really paid attention to her career. I just know her by name. I know that she's one of the latest It girls. I don't know if I want to say that, if that's even the right thing to say. I've never seen Parks and Rec.
Well, she's doing like I'm sort of disappointed. She's on that Marvel TV show.
Yeah. No, I saw.
Agatha
Yeah,
all
no, I
along.
saw her.
And I'm like,
yeah.
what are you doing? That's like
yeah, exactly. Well,
that's
in
like
her
Josh Brolin
interviews
doing his Twilight Zone thing for Prime.
Exactly.
You know, like
I
she'd
don't
go,
know.
What are you doing? What are you doing?
I don't know,
You
but it
know?
was also her interviews for that
Tell your
show.
agent,
that
Shut up!
were-
I'm not doing
Yeah.
a Star or a Marvel TV show.
Well, I
But
guess we can
anyway.
forgive her for that. But
Yeah.
no, I thought she owned that role.
Yeah.
You know, she really was a devious sort. I mean, I guess I don't know any of the female villainesses from Roman times, but
I
you
just
know,
have to watch I Claudius.
Claudius. There you go. Thank you.
That's
I'll
her
get the name.
face.
You know, but certainly, you know, there. You know, she is Lady
Sean
M.
Phillips. Who did Sean Phillips play? She was fantastic. She was one of the bad ladies. Augustus's first wife.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay.
Livia?
Well,
No.
she would have been. I mean, I hate to say it, but like the recent Macbeth, the Cone, the god awful Denzel Washington, she would have been a much better Lady M. You know, I mean, just that's what that role reminded me of. I mean, a conniving.
Yeah, but I like the moment where he said, "I don't marry for love," or
Yeah.
You don't marry for love, and just the heartbreak. I thought she did good stuff.
She did.
You know,
no,
and
I
then
enjoyed her work. I did enjoy her work, and that Randy scene with her and Shia LaBeouf. I mean, bold.
I give
Bold,
her a
but
10 in that
Oh,
scene.
yeah, boy, did I say 5? I meant 5 times 2. That's what I meant. No, you know, and that's really though. I mean, it's not an easy scene for anyone to watch, but kind of funny how it's really, you know, a negotiation disguised as a sex scene, if that makes sense. You know, and just her character.
Yeah, she's calling the shots, and
She's calling the shots, and she's got him where she wants him.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
All right, John Voight. Give me a John Voight rating. Alex.
I'm going to give him a 7. I
Oh.
like John Voight, you know, but of course I'm going to, you know, and he's getting up there in age. I thought he was fine. He held his own.
He seems like a presence in the film. When
He is a
lately,
presence.
he's
Well-
usually just, you know, well, especially in the 90s or when he's in these movies where he's just collecting his paycheck.
Mhm.
And like, I was surprised that Coppola gave him that much time and that much of a character arc. So that's why
Yeah.
I like John Voight. I thought, wow, he you know, he didn't fail. He obviously
No,
he
no,
wouldn't.
no. And
you know?
and maybe I give him a 7 because, you know, I'm thinking of Joe Buck, or I'm thinking of
Yeah.
Deliverance.
No, this wasn't. Again, he's
you know,
just
those,
playing
or
the
even
old-
Coming Home, but he
Yeah.
was solid. I haven't seen a solid John Voight performance in a long time.
Yeah,
And
last time he made an impression on me in a movie was Heat.
yeah,
You know,
he was essentially playing Eddie Bunker, but he did a great job. No, he did.
Yeah.
Apparently he was based on Eddie Bunker, but no, it was, you know, he still got it. I mean, it's obvious he's getting up there in age, and he played his age well. And I like how, you know, the sort of feigning the, you know, the feebleness, and yet he still got something in the tank. The whole, you know, that whole build up with
those
the
arrows
era.
looked a little shaky.
Oh, they looked a little shaky, but the setup to that, and just to see Shia LaBeouf get shot in the hindquarters.
Should have been
was
a
quite-
crossbow.
Twice. Yeah.
Speaking of Fritz Freeling, you know, there was that comedic element.
Yeah, it seemed a little bizarre.
It was, but almost
Definitely
almost perfect for that character.
Yeah,
You know, just the humiliation of getting shot in the ass. I mean, and Rudy having to pull him out. Oh,
yeah.
you know, that's Yosemite Sam right there. So,
All right, well,
no.
moving on.
Well,
we
wait a
don't
minute.
talk
Did
about this-
Joe? What about Joe?
Joe, sorry.
It's okay.
All right, Joe.
I give him an 8. I liked him.
Awesome.
I thought that he also played kind of a weird, I mean, just horny old man, basically. uh, who seems to be going senile, but is actually quite crafty underneath all of that, and doesn't let people actually take advantage of him, and can actually kind of see through people's schemes for his money and things. And I don't know, it's good. I mean, I do think that scene is much more comedic and absurd.
Yeah.
There's no way you're pulling a little bow of that size and it's actually able to pierce through somebody's sternum to kill them.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think maybe
You
the
know.
string was made of Catalinian.
Oh,
I mean,
that's
a very
it's-
strong fiber.
Well, that probably would have helped if they had.
Yeah.
I just say, why not a crossbow? And then as he kills
That's
her, he
true.
loads the other one and shoots.
Well,
Shia
you would have
and-
you could tell under the blanket. It was much, you had to.
Well,
I
it still was. Again, it's fine. I accept it as what
True.
it is, as
Okay.
pure theater. But it seemed a little odd that he's an old man. He wouldn't be able to he wouldn't be able to kill anybody with that. But anyway,
Catalinian. Okay.
okay. How do you rate the screenplay, Joe Field?
This is one I would say. Screenplay that goes into the script, right? And whatnot.
That's a
So
script.
I would say, I would say 5.
Fine.
Um,
Okay. Yeah,
and
that
I-
warrants a bad movie.
I put it there because I think that there were some good moments that were written well, but there was also a lot that was, like I said, it was lopsided and kind of hard for me to follow in a lot of cases. Because of sort of the switching up from Shakespearean to improvisational, dialogue to, back to Shakespearean, and then quoting these major figures from history without mentioning who they are occasionally. And it was just like, I'm sorry, I have a hard time figuring out what all of this is even about.
I feel like I have a handle on what it's about. I don't think it's the strongest screenplay, but I think the direction and performance brought it together. Alex, how do you rate the screenplay?
I'm gonna give it I think I'm gonna kind of give it a 7, but a low 7. And part of my reservations are just certain things they didn't follow through on that I'd like to have seen.
I wonder if that's
know.
the editing, though. So
Editing, that's the thing. Was it
Yeah.
just time? Was it,
Yeah.
will we see an editor's or a director's cut?
yeah,
A little bit more, but we'll see. But I think it could have explored a little bit more because there was a lot going on.
Yeah.
They certainly got us interested as an audience member, and it's always disappointing when a character is introduced or something is introduced and they don't follow through on it.
absolutely. Now, who was the cinematographer?
Oh, Romanian fella who did The Master. So there you
Oh.
go. Yeah. So he's not a slouch. He certainly has Michael. I'm not doing his name justice. Mihai Melimer Jr. So
How did you score? How was the score? Alex, giving a rating?
the score.
Yeah.
I didn't really pay attention to the score. I don't know why. It didn't. It wasn't intrusive. It didn't bother me.
Yeah, I give it that.
I do like some of the contemporary music. I do, because it fit. Like with Vesta's song. It just seemed to, it's like pure pop for now people. Let's just please the audience. It's nice, pleasing pop music. But I thought it didn't seem jarring. It just seemed appropriate to the story. But I don't know if I'd call that the score, if I'd call that the soundtrack.
Yeah, that's the soundtrack.
Yeah, that's
Joe,
more the
you-
soundtrack.
Oh, sorry. I'm
let's
hurrying this
go
along
ahead.
because we're running out of time
No,
for
I
sure.
understand. It's fine.
Joe, do you have any thoughts on technical aspects like the cinematography or the score? Anything that jumped out?
I thought the cinematography was really good. I enjoyed that. I think that for the score, there were a couple moments where I felt like the the use of like saxophone, for example.
Yeah.
It called attention to itself a little too much in certain
Yeah,
scenes.
I definitely noted the wacky sax. Yeah.
And for me, I'm like,
There you go.
that should be in the background, and it wasn't. I'm like, you're fighting with Adam
Saxophone is
Driver
never
right
in
now,
the background.
you know.
So a saxophone sort of lends itself to absurdity.
Yeah,
And I thought he was doing it on purpose, but I bought into the whole mood of it all. I don't know if we need to rate them. They don't rate that high, but ultimately, let's get back to it. So this is what makes or breaks the film: the direction. So Joe Field, you rated the screenplay of 5. How was the direction? Or 4? What'd you rate this? What'd you rate the screenplay?
I rated it a 5.
5. So what do you rate the direction?
I would rate the direction at. I'm gonna say 6. I think that some of the direction in different scenes was good, but overall, like as a cohesive whole, was harder to balance. I think there wasn't my initial confusion with watching it. I think a lot of that comes down to some of the direction, and little aspects that just aren't really explained very well. The way that things are kind of put together.
But don't you think a director, if he can pull it off and you still like the film, obviously you didn't like the film, but I think sometimes, I hate to make excuses when I'm always nitpicking for things done wrong, but I think he created an energy and as I was saying to Alex, the brio, the just sort of force of will that made this film work despite its numerous shortcomings. So I like I think the direction it's a triumph of direction over sort of, I would say the screenplay is probably the weakest part of the film. So anyway, but you're gonna, what's the number again? You said 6? Alex, what do you got?
I'm gonna give it a good solid 8.5. I would go higher, but no. It's and again, it's nice to see Coppola on form. I mean, in context to earlier works, it's not. It's no Godfather, it's no Apocalypse Now, but it doesn't matter. It's still Coppola, and I think the audacity.
He is trying. He is
trying, and that's the great thing is that
maybe it's a ground roll double. I don't know, but it's not.
It doesn't matter. But the fact that he takes chances.
Yeah.
The very same chances that allowed him to succeed in his early days.
Yeah.
So I don't get the sense of a guy who's getting up there in age and decides to phone it in. We can probably argue about that with the other movies, but probably the movies where he was doing it for a paycheck because he had to.
Yeah.
This really does feel like a personal project, a pet project. It really feels there's a personal touch to it, certainly. Yeah.
Well, there's a likability that Scorsese doesn't have anymore. Like you watch The Irishman, you're like, I just don't give a rat's ass.
Yeah, no, it's
that's
just
what's going on. Or when you watch, I always think of Eyes Wide Shut because it's the biggest jaw dropper of my life. Where one of my favorite filmmakers boy, you really just put the lampshade on, or pouring beer on your head and peeing on the carpet and just astounding us with how awful you can be.
Okay,
and so many people go, "Oh, you misunderstood the point. Oh, you..." I'm like, nope. All I see is a horny old man jerking off in front of everybody. This is just the worst movie, the worst piece of crap. With, as Roseanne always points out, the cherry on the sundae is Sidney Pollack in a tank top.
Oh my God!
Yeah, no,
you almost had me. I was always going to see that until you brought that up.
No, it's just a boring,
I've never seen it.
Pretentious,
I've never
horny piece of crap.
Thank you.
I hate it. It's just a detestable film. And so I'm thinking, and then you got Silence by Scorsese, and okay, so Killers of the Flower Moon was competent.
It was competent, but it wasn't.
It's not. It doesn't have any of that vitality that he.
It could have been anyone else
who
made that movie.
It's not Taxi Driver. It's not King of Comedy. It's like, this is fine, and the Departed. Like, boy, this is hard to believe. This is Martin Scorsese with this.
And he wins the Academy Award.
Yeah,
for
this
that.
slasher film. Everybody dies. Well, who cares?
Yeah.
So he just lost the. So Coppola at least came back roaring in a sense, like, well, at least I'm captivated or at least beguiled by this film. Like, okay, this is something I wasn't expecting. You
Well,
know?
I think the difference between the other directors that you've mentioned, that I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, but Coppola's never ever copped to that kind of cynicism that seems to run through so many movies today.
Yeah.
You know, there's a real hopelessness.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, where death is pretty much everywhere, and it's like, yeah, like you said in The Departed, everybody dies. It's this, what's the point? I mean, it's so numbing.
Well, Silence,
you
for
don't-
example.
You
Did
don't even
see
care about
Silence?
these.
Did you see Silence?
I was never able to finish it. It just didn't
but
interest me.
it's okay, but it seems to be Scorsese justifying his faith in a very weak,
His lack of.
like a weak-willed way. Like, this
Yeah.
is not that good. This is not. There's no vitality to it. It's an
Was that his-
old man on his deathbed saying, "Yeah, I may not be the best Catholic, but I still have something in there." It's like, what a boring
Yeah.
film. What a boring film justifying your lack of conviction, you know. And that's the way. So
If it was a bumper sticker, it would say coexist.
yeah, pretty much. So then Coppola comes out with this, and you go, well, this is like as I got off the phone, left the theater, called you immediately, and said, you got to see it. It's bonkers. It's
Well, then-
bonkers.
and I went. I
no,
did.
but would you agree? It's bonkers. It's
Yes.
not, like I think of Steve Martin and Roxanne going, or Rick Rosovich and Roxanne going, I heard it was big. I didn't know it was
You're
big.
big.
You know, like, it just has that feel. I'm like, okay, I didn't think he was gonna go there. I didn't think there was gonna be CGI and all that. Like, I just didn't think this was gonna happen. I didn't. So that's all. So I was just pleasantly surprised that it was a work of art. It
He
really is a
pulled out
work
the
of art to be
stops.
discussed and
Yeah.
analyzed. And that's been a long time coming. Because as much as I sort of liked Killers of the Flower Moon, I'd say that has a sort of stale feel to it, where this doesn't.
Yeah, I know. You know, I agree.
So, on that note, I guess we'll talk in a year about the same movie. This will be our first revisit. So
Yes.
mark your calendars. In 1 year, we'll revisit this film. Okay, Alex, you gonna recommend it?
Yes, I am.
Joe, you gonna recommend it?
No.
No, you wouldn't recommend it to anybody? Cinephiles? You're
Maybe
cinephile?
maybe some hardcore cinephiles, sure.
Well, I'll give Coppola the credit of like, well, at least there's something to chew on this film, and
Well,
it's
and
not
hopefully
lifeless.
it's one of those
it's
movies
not
that
lifeless.
stands. Yeah, it's a movie
And most
that
films I
will-
see these days are lifeless.
Hopefully, it stands the test of time, or it does gain an audience over time. You know. Like,
Last
hey, we-
question, Alex, before we depart. Best film ranking the films you've seen that you've liked. Where does Megalopolis stand? Better or worse than Wildcat or Horizon?
I would sandwich it between Wildcat and Horizon.
Number 2?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know. You know, something about Wildcat. I don't know. Maybe it was the superlative performance of Maya Hawke or the story. I just, you know, and just what a wonderful.
I'm gonna go
inventive little
Wildcat for
movie.
sure as just a fluid piece of cinema, a
Yes,
dazzling piece of
definitely.
cinema without very many problems, if any. Whatever we cataloged on the, whatever we mentioned in the podcast.
And again, well, and just like Coppola, somebody with a definite vision who wasn't afraid.
Yeah.
know, and not afraid to
Horizon
tell
though.
the story.
Horizon's interesting because I'd say it's not as cohesive as Horizon, but it's a more ambitious film than Horizon.
Well, that's what I like is the ambition, and I do like Horizon. Trust
Yeah.
me. I wish both movies would have made money.
Yeah.
You know, but money's not everything.
And you know,
really-
I think at some point I posted on my Facebook page that I was looking forward to these films the most. And it's funny
You
that
did.
in a way they didn't disappoint. Like they both were films worth seeing in the theaters.
Well, if it's any consolation, Joker 2 is not really. And hope,
See,
you
and I
know.
have now that it's a bomb, I have no interest in seeing it. I might see it just for the hell of it.
Well, I
But
went to read the plot just because I didn't care, and it's like, okay, and I'm not a DC fan, but even I'd be like, are you kidding me?
Anyway, all right. Thanks,
Sounds good.
gents. So
Thank you, sir.
join us
Thank you.
if you will, and thank you for joining us, listeners out there. Please continue to like, subscribe, and would it kill you to make a comment or two? Is it because I'm so much of a Ayn Randish globalist, such that nobody comments on my videos? Just comment.
Well, at least
Call
comment.
me a jerk.
Yeah.
Say, boy, are you a stuck-up jerk?
Exactly. You know, or mention Joe Field's toxic beard. You know, his
Yeah.
masculine beard, which we like.
Yeah.
Offended by that beard.
Offended by that beard.
You are looking a little bit like J.D. Vance now, come to think of it.
The
I'm just
political
I'm just wearing the patriarchy right here.
Yeah. All right. Bye, everybody.
All right. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to Fabulous Film and Friends. Copyright 2024, a Bel Air Films production.